Okay, so not too long ago, a YouTuber I watch, Chuck, made a video on the Marvel universe and whether or not they would be able to win the Tournament of Power. I was a pretty big fan of the video, and I thought I would do something similar but with DC characters since it wasn't something it looked like anybody had touched yet. So this is going to be my take on whether or not Earth One from like the modern DC continuity would be able to stop or survive the Tournament of Power, and if they would win if they participated. So first, just to go over the Tournament of Power rules, it was a tournament between I think I wish I remember the number. It was like 7 universes, like the lower ranking power scaling universes in the Dragon Ball universe, or I guess multiverse. And so there was a few rules. They were put in like an enclosed area with a 48-minute time limit. Disqualification is only attained if you're knocked out of the arena. So even if you're like unconscious, you have to be like thrown physically out of the arena to be knocked unconscious. And the only other thing, so there's no flight allowed, no killing, no use of weapons, and no healing items at all during the match. And those are like the restrictive rules. So because I think it's at least kind of fun to imagine how something like this could go down, both in like the actual like setting and what it would look like in terms of the story if it were to be turned into a story, right? You can imagine Whis approaching some character to talk about, discuss the Tournament of Power. And I guess for this sake, we could say Earth One exists in the Dragon Ball multiverse. So it would be something under Zeno's domain and something he would be capable of destroying. So, in terms of characters Whis could approach, there aren't really many. Usually it's like, the angel and the god of destruction of the universe that are able to decide what or like who the participants are going to be that represent the universe. I guess I figure the closest thing we can really get is like a character like the Flash, who has become the living embodiment of death at some point in his career. Maybe Whis decides that that's about equivalent to being the god of destruction and asks him to go about selecting people. Alternatively, maybe you could approach Darkseid or something. I don't really know. But in terms of a roster, really just went through and picked out a few characters. I think these guys are like pretty standard heavy hitters for the verse in general. Superman, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, Shazam, Flash, Aquaman, Supergirl, General Zod, Black Adam, and Reverse Flash. So I think generally all these characters would be pretty easy to convince to join. Maybe all of them except for Reverse Flash. He's the only one I could see like maybe choosing not to join the roster, or maybe being like a problematic pick for the roster, because like in all seriousness, like he's probably not super like he's just like a mentally insane guy. Can't imagine he would really even care that much if his universe would be destroyed, even if that includes him. He's just a little unhinged. He's kind of like a loose, a wild card, I guess. But the rest of them, I think, would be pretty motivated to win the Tournament of Power. Some notable mentions for characters I didn't include. Didn't include Darkseid because it feels like the participants in this are usually like mortal characters, and he's definitely not. Batman, I'm pretty sure, just gets absolutely mollywopped. Steps in and he's like immediately knocked out of the arena. Only reason to maybe bring Batman is so maybe somebody like underestimates or overestimates how strong he is and accidentally kills him and gets eliminated that way. But aside from that, I don't really see Batman being a credible fighter here. Green Lantern can't be included because weapons aren't allowed, so he wouldn't be able to use his powering. And at that point, he is just like a pretty normal dude, albeit with a lot of willpower. And then Doomsday, I think, would be a hard sell for the other members of the team because, one, a little too wild, he'll just attack everybody, and he also would definitely not hold back in killing people. So, Doomsday is probably not a very viable option either. Going over some of the participants of the Tournament of Power, there are like 80 characters, but for the most part, these guys are not important at all. I guess from Universe 2, Jimizu has his instant transportation, which I guess is pretty cool, but the rest of them don't really do anything. Ribrianne and the rest of her little, I forget what they're called, but like the Sailor Moon equivalents, I guess, definitely aren't the top of the verse, and we don't really need to discuss them. We'll kind of go over most of these characters, I guess, by proxy when we talk about the stronger Dragon Ball characters. Then we have the Universe 3 fusion robot. I guess he might be the most credible threat. It took like several of the Z fighters to be able to overpower his Ki Blast. So, he's among the strong, but in terms of like hacks, he doesn't really have anything that he offers particularly uniquely. So we'll consider him with like the general Dragon Ball scaling as well. Universe 4, honestly, looking back at these, don't remember any of these guys except for Majora and his whole thing being, that his nose is super impressive, but he ended up getting beat by Krillin's dirty shoe, so not really a character worth exploring. Same with Universe 10. Really, just these guys are absolute jewelers, literally do nothing, contribute nothing. Diem can fly because he has wings. It doesn't need to use like Ki to levitate, but I mean, like, what is that really going to do for him? So this is where we start to pick up a little bit. Universe 9 has the three Fox brothers, and I guess they're like decently formidable. They probably scale to like Dragon Ball Super Gohan, maybe a little less. And then Universe 11, obviously, we have three heavy hitters being Top, Jiren, and Dyspo. Worth mentioning real quick, Dyspo is said to be, through statement, like the fastest character in Universe 11, and I guess by proxy, you might think he's the fastest character in Dragon Ball Super, considering how high Jiren scales. But, I think Dyspo being the fastest member of Universe 11, probably about equivalent to saying that Burger is the fastest in the universe in the Frieza saga. Like, it's just definitively and like not possible. We know for a fact that he's slower than Goku, slower than Frieza, slower than so many characters. So kind of just a hyperbolic statement that probably shouldn't be taken super literally. But to be fair, Dyspo is at least pretty fast. Universe 6, these are some of the characters that we have a little more knowledge of. Obviously, Caulifla and Kale have like a pretty powerful Potara fusion, which is going to be worth exploring. Hit has the ability to freeze time. Ada, Magetta, and Botamo are really strange characters, but they're both actually like, relatively strong in terms of showings. Like, Botamo is unable to be defeated like through knockout. He's just like immune to all physical damage for some reason. And then Ada Magetta is also like kind of in a similar boat where his only weakness is being like verbally insulted. And otherwise, Frieza or Vegeta was struggling to fight him. They had like a Ki Blast match, and Ada Magetta was able to stand up to the Big Bang. So maybe Final Flash actually. But the point is, I guess he's like decently strong, and mostly with those two, the thing is they're pretty hard to move, which will be interesting to explore. Universe 7, these are the characters that we definitely know the most about. Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, obviously very like the poster child of Dragon Ball Z. Frieza as well. Of course, we're going to be using the versions of these characters as they present in Universe 7, so we're not going to be using like Beast Gohan, Ultra Ego Vegeta, Black Frieza, or any of those. Aside from that, I guess Android 17 and 18 are worth mentioning for having unlimited stamina. Master Roshi has like some basic unlocked form of Ultra Instinct, but like not to the same level that Goku is able to do it. So to just go into like the general scaling for Dragon Ball, and I guess this will be focusing on like the strongest members of the Tournament of Power, because obviously characters like Goku are absolutely like no diffing the lower characters in Dragon Ball Super, so it's to the point where it's not even really worth talking about them. But so for like Goku and like similar characters, we see very early on in Dragon Ball Super, he gets to a level where he's capable of shaking the entire universe. And, I've heard a lot of arguments about the Dragon Ball cosmology being, like, absolutely huge, containing, like, multiple realms, and that's how people try to get it to complex multiversal, but I don't really buy it. It is just a universe, and even in terms of scale and size, it's not really even comparable to the DC, base universe. But still pretty impressive. He's able to shake the universe. Later on, he's able to shake the World of Void, which is where the Tournament of Power is housed. And this kind of is like a realm that exists outside of the major universes. So I think if you're even being like generous, we can maybe even like put Goku to like a low multiversal level. But even then, I think that's like maybe a little much. We know Zeno is confirmed like low multiversal level because he's able to destroy like the 11 universes in like seemingly with like a decent amount of ease. So maybe you can get him like a little higher, but there's no feats where Goku is scaling to Zeno. Zeno can literally treat Beerus as a dog, and I don't think Goku's surpassed Beerus yet either. So, in terms of scaling, I think generally, if we're being like generous, we'll say like low multiversal in terms of strength for Dragon Ball. And so for speed, the Dragon Ball series follows like a really strange formula when it comes to scaling for basic speed rather. Basically, people will take some light speed feat from early Dragon Ball where Goku's getting shot at by like a laser beam. He's able to dodge it and react to it. And then we apply some ridiculous multipliers throughout the series because Goku in Dragon Ball Z is X times stronger than Goku in the beginning of Dragon Ball. Then the Super Saiyans add like a 100 times multiplier. Super Saiyan 4 or 3 adds like a 400 multiplier, whatever. The point is you do a lot of multipliers and eventually you end up with some like pretty crazy numbers. Massively faster than Light Plus is the general like calc that people reach for a Dragon Ball, which I think is more than fair if you're going about that route of scaling. There are statements like Dyspo being faster than Light and that being impressive, but generally I think those have been debunked and they kind of stand as outliers. I think it's pretty easy to see that Dragon Ball should be at least like massively faster than Light speed meta. As for the DC characters, we're gonna go into like I guess some of the higher balls, and also talk about like where the low ball character or the lower tier characters will stand relative to the high tier characters. So first off, we have Superman being maybe the heaviest hitter for the team, almost definitely, and Zod maybe being like about comparable, maybe a little less so, at least in terms of showings. So that being said, we have feats where Superman is literally able to lift all of reality on his shoulders. DC cosmology is complex multiversal at least. So this is obviously going to be like a very impressive feat from him. Of course, when it comes to the reality that he lifted, it's not necessarily the whole of the multiverse that he's lifting. Could just be his own like universe's reality. It's not really like it's a little vague. But in terms of other feats that I think can put Superman to that complex multiversal, he, while fighting alongside pre-crisis Superman and able to keep up with him, by the way, was able to fight and injure Superboy Prime, albeit not stronger than Superboy Prime by any margin. Superboy Prime would definitely like rock him in a one-on-one fight. But being even comparable to Superboy Prime, who is able to rock the entire DC multiverse just through like raw strength and punches alone, kind of just goes to show how strong he is. And even a character like the Flash, who's on the lower tier, in general, he's considered at least to be like in the lower tier in terms of power. He was able to clock the Anti-Monitor with a infinite mass punch, which was able to send the Anti-Monitor flying. And the Anti-Monitor is a character who, like, in his first appearance was a multiversal level threat. He was responsible for the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like, he is easily a complex multiversal character. And Flash, who is definitely not really even comparable to Superman in terms of strength, both narratively and in terms of feats, is still able to lay out somebody like Anti-Monitor. Although, to be fair, this is maybe like a high-end Flash feat. But even still, we see him able to do damage with the infinite mass punch to like relatively high, like tiered characters who are capable of fighting Superman. Again, with some of the lower tiers, and when I say low tier, I of course mean like in terms of power and speed, like not judging these characters. Aquaman has had showings where he's able to like throw hands with characters like Superman. Superman, of course, is going to be like heavily restricted and heavily holding back in every fight he has with Aquaman because he's not looking to just kill one of his friends. But even still, Aquaman is able to hurt Superman. And like, I think generally for scaling, we can put Aquaman pretty confidently at, at least Galaxy level, and that's, maybe even like a low ball for a character like him. Wonder Woman, who's like, often thought to be not quite as strong as Superman, and more so just like a very, very skilled fighter with just like less power is, she's capable of fighting against like old and new gods like Darkseid, albeit she's not Darkseid level, but she is capable of fighting against him and keeping up with characters like Superman. So she's definitely no slouch in like the raw strength and speed department. But where she really like shines is just her combat prowess, and her utilities as well. But she doesn't have access to her sword or her lasso of truth in this fight because no weapons are allowed. I guess that would also probably include the tiara. Now, in terms of speed, again, most relevant characters to scale are going to be Superman and the Flash, and comic books just get to ludicrous levels of speed when it, especially like travel speed. Essentially, both of these characters are already at the point where they're like kind of beyond speed, really even like being like a real thing to them. They don't really even travel from point A to point B the like way you would imagine. Case in point, the Flash's best speed feat, he was able to outrun instant teleportation, which doesn't really mean anything, but at the same time, like, it is still a feat. He was able to run from one end of the universe to the other before two like highly advanced beings were able to use their like sophisticated teleportation technology to move to the other side of the world. So Flash and Superman are like just ludicrously fast. Again, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, those characters aren't scaling quite to this, but they're already putting out their own massively faster than light speeds, usually because of the characters that they're able to tag and fight against. So first off, in terms of like all the fodder, Flash and Reverse Flash are just able to clear them really easily. They can just run around to all of the Universe 2, 3, 4 members, just pick them up and just move them to the outside of the ring. Just that simple, before they can even react to it. Only characters that they really can't do this to are going to be the characters that are, maybe a little stronger, maybe a little heftier, can really dig their feet more in the ground, and characters who, I guess you might say, may have a chance of reacting in time, but generally this is going to be like already kind of a very strong win condition for the DC characters. I guess in terms of some fun interactions, I guess you can have Hit versus the Flash. Hit has the power to stop time for like a few seconds at a time. And even Goku was able to kind of tag Hit after he learned like the rhythm and the pattern. And in terms of speed scaling, like the Flash completely outclasses Hit. There's just like no chance that Hit is going to be able to do anything to Flash, unless like I guess he stops time and immediately drops like a haymaker on Flash's head. But even then, Flash is able to react to it. There's nothing Hit can do in terms of like his actual movement speed that's going to compare to the Flash. And so I guess he can hit him and stop time. And that might be a convincing argument for why the Flash should lose to Hit. But at the same time, if Flash is taking it seriously, Hit really should not have even a chance to activate his time stop. Like, he just will not be able to react to getting speed blitzed. Dyspo will be a really funny interaction because, he'll pull up and he'll say like, oh, I'm the fastest in the universe. And we'll have like a Goku versus Birder moment where he's just completely outclassed by these nobodies who he doesn't even know. And they're just literally not even going to like respect his speed because he's just going to be like millions upon millions of times slower than them. I guess to be fair to the Dragon Ball characters in cast, they do have some matchups that are pretty favorable for them. If the DC roster is deciding that they don't really want to approach this strategically and they decide to send Martian Manhunter against the robot with lava nipples, then, Robot has a very good chance here of beating Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is very weak to fire. It depends on the iteration, whether it's like a physical weakness or like a psychological weakness. So it's hard to say, like maybe even just seeing the fire is going to be enough to kind of like stagger him and have him get hit by it. But, if he does get touched by the magma attack, he's pretty much out for the count. But at the same time, Martian Manhunter really should not be getting tagged by something like that. He should be able to outspeed it. But, I guess even if we're being generous, sure, we could take out Martian Manhunter. I think he's a horribly overglazed character anyway. In terms of like Botamo, very big Winnie the Pooh looking guy. He doesn't take like conventional damage, which is very interesting. It's always going to be like an interesting idea to analyze how his fight would interact, or how he like as a fighter would interact with other characters where there's no out of bound rules. But in this case, there are. Gohan was able to defeat him by just punching him hard enough to push him back and sending him out of the ring. Should be no problem for a character like Superman, who's able to lift all of like the DC Earth 1 reality on his shoulders. Should really just be able to pick up Botamo and just throw him right out of the ring pretty easily. Don't really see any way that Botamo is going to be much of a problem for the DC cast, unless I guess they lose all of their heavy hitters who would be capable of picking him up, which is like most of them. So even in terms of like, Kefla, one of the stronger characters that appear in the tournament, like, in terms of scaling, she's just not touching characters like Superman or Shazam or General Zod, who are relative to Superman. Just in terms of like raw strength, raw speed, they completely outclass her in every stat. And if not for her stats, she doesn't really have much. Even Wonder Woman, who like scales a little bit below Superman, is definitely piecing Kefla in a fight. Even if they had like roughly equal strength and speed, Diana is just a way better fighter than Kefla and either of her component parts are. And this is like going to be a weird topic to glaze over because I think Goku versus Superman is constantly debated very heavily in the community. Let's say we're being generous and we're gonna say like despite the speed difference, which is massive, Ultra Instinct Goku is able to perfectly evade all of Superman's attacks. Superman's not able to land a hit. Even in that situation, Goku still loses. Especially in Tournament of Power, Goku just has like a huge time cap on how long he can use Ultra Instinct for. And if Superman is going to, fight him, there's just nothing Goku is going to have in his kit that can even really harm Superman. Like the most he can probably do is maybe hit him with a solar flare to stun him for a little bit. But like, in terms of strength, his at most low multiversal power is not really going to be standing up to Superman in his higher tier like feats. So Superman really just has to wait out the Ultra Instinct timer and then just grab Goku and toss him right out of the ring. In terms of, I guess, Top, who's among the stronger characters as well. Again, in terms of scaling, he doesn't really go too much higher in terms of power than Ultra Instinct Goku. The only thing that he has in his kit that might be a little devastating for DC would be his Hakai, which, we haven't seen him use, but pretty heavily implied that he should be able to use it. Even Goku, who didn't become a Destroyer God, was able to like use it after seeing it a few times. That being said, if Top does use his Hakai and eviscerates like Superman or something, he's disqualified from the tournament. That has to be like a last resort, and he has to still have Jiren like as an option. But even then, like if you take out someone like Superman, if you take out someone like Martian Manhunter, they still have Zod, the Flashes. There's just too much to deal with. Jiren, even being as strong as he is in Dragon Ball Super, is not standing up to even like Black Adam or Aquaman probably, right? Aquaman, I guess maybe like you can make a case for Jiren for putting Aquaman like Galaxy or lower level, but Black Adam should easily be scaling to low multiversal, should be able to hurt Jiren, and just in terms of speed, the DC characters just have way more at their disposal than Jiren ever could. It's also, I guess, there's the I forget the name of the attack, but it's like a ceiling attack that Goku and Roshi are able to use, and they do use it in the Tournament of Power as well. And this could be a very easy way for them to score, an out of bounds hit on one of the DC heroes, right? So even but to be fair, even if Superman just stands there, watches Goku charges up, hits him with it, and Superman doesn't even feel like dodging, would be like a weird characterization. Maybe it could happen, right? Even if Goku's able to hit him with this and like sends him out of bounds, because I guess it should ignore conventional stats, there's still just way too many characters that the DBZ characters would have to deal with. And I guess if we're being generous, Superman can get outed by the like the ceiling technique. Martian Manhunter by the fire. Aquaman maybe just doesn't quite scale to these guys. The Flash and Reverse Flash are just going to be absolute menaces this fight. None of the DBZ characters are going to be able to touch him. Same with Supergirl and Shazam and Zod. Like all of them have the speed scaling to say like they're probably not really getting touched by the DBZ cast. And these are still going to be like 7 really capable fighters with feats that can almost rival Superman. So there's just really no convincing way that Dragon Ball Super would be able to deal with all these people. I think even if all of the other universes saw them as a threat and decided, okay, these guys are clearly like in a different class, maybe we should team up on them first. I really don't think, like, I think even Jiren, Ultra Instinct Goku, Top the Destroyer, all going against a character like the Flash or Supergirl, like they don't stand a chance. They're just not touching them, and they're also outclassed in terms of like AP. So I guess my conclusion would be DC Universe probably takes it pretty handedly. It almost feels like a spite match talking about it, which wasn't my original intention, but problem is comic books just have such crazy, ludicrous lines of scaling that, as it stands, DBS can't really touch. But yeah, that's at least my opinion on it and how I would interpret it. And that's all for this video.